Hello and welcome to Women in Retail Talks. I'm Ashley Taradio, Senior Content Strategist at the Women in Retail Leadership Circle, and today I'm joined by Shani Godwin, author, entrepreneur, and creator of Communique USA, a marketing communications firm based in the Atlanta area. We're going to be talking about Shani's career journey, some tips she has for work-life balance, how she's influencing mental health conversations in corporate America, and much more. So Shani, thanks for joining me today.
Ashley, thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this discussion.
So I thought we could start by you telling us a little bit about your career journey and your connection to corporate America.
Absolutely. So I got my start in corporate America. It's starting to feel like ages ago, but I fell out of high school and landed an internship of a lifetime at a big ad agency, worldwide ad agency called J. Walter Thompson. And so I tell people I literally started eating, breathing, and sleeping all things advertising and marketing communications before I ever set foot on a college campus. I was able to start at Hampton University that fall and study advertising, get a degree in advertising. And so my corporate career started in the early 90s in advertising. And I was able to really hit the ground running out of college. From Hampton, I worked at J. Walter Thompson, specialized communications, for about a year, and at the ripe age of about 22 decided I wanted to be the client, which people thought was crazy, but I figured it out, jumped over to the corporate side as the client, and was able to work with so many different agencies and run multi-million-dollar campaigns for companies like Chick-fil-A, Bell South Telecommunications, and then get an MBA in marketing. And then about 6 years into my career, really wanted to pivot and set my foot out into the big wide world as an entrepreneur, which was a crazy time. It was a year after 9/11. It was also a year when the year after all the dot-coms busted, which have now become kind of a marketing textbook history lesson. And and kind of stepped out on a lot of faith and a lot of even more passion, and started Communique USA. And we just celebrated 18 years in business.
That's amazing. Congrats.
Thank you.
So you know firsthand the impact chronic stress can have on employee productivity and overall an organization's bottom line.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit about your experience and how you challenge businesses to rethink how we let employees manage life stressors?
Absolutely. So we created a brand called Joy Economics about 3 years ago. It was a product of a growth plan that I was creating in a growth program that I had gotten approved to participate in, the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program. And throughout my career journey, I started Communique because I wanted it to be a lifestyle brand and a business for myself. I was married at the time. I assumed I would stay married. Life in my late 20s looked, rosy and like it was going to go according to plan, as I think it does for most of us in our 20s. And then I hit my 30s and life took me on a crazy off-road path, and ended up getting diagnosed with depression at age 30. And it was really a game changer for me. It was completely devastating. It really ripped and stripped me of who I knew myself to be as a high performing achiever. And from there, a couple of years later, went through a very unexpected and painful divorce, only to be followed up by the unexpected death of my father. And so here I was 4 or 5 years in doing this entrepreneurial thing, and it really called into question a lot of things and really shook up what I believed my job was meant for. And obviously having to manage a business, show up for clients, whether I was whole or not, people can't see stress, right? They can feel it, they can sense it, but as long as you're talking and walking, people kind of keep throwing stuff at you. And so I had to learn how to navigate all of that in a way that was honoring to myself, but also allowed me to do the best work. And so years later, really started learning how to manage stress, how to manage my depression, lots of therapy, lots of journaling, and a lot of soul work. And really over time started to see all the other life occurrences happening in and around my business. To my clients, life was happening all day. People were going through divorces, painful things, tragedies, and the business never really, whether it's my business or clients' businesses, people just keep working. And so I became very passionate after my dad died about creating an organizational culture that honored people and allowed people to be their whole selves at work so that the business could figure out how to meet its imperatives while also honoring and giving space to the human existence of the people who were responsible for making it happen day in and day out. And so we started very simply with a work-life balance policy designed to allow employees time to take a break at the end of the day. I really started seeing the horror of and the stress of devices and how it kept us glued and tethered to each other and took us away from our families. And so I found myself in the middle of a growth program, and we were growing by leaps and bounds. Everyone was telling me I should be so happy. And I found myself at 3 a.m. crying because I was so stressed out. And I had to stop and really assess some things and really started doing research on the cost of stress on corporate America, on employees, and on our bottom lines as a company, and found that stress holistically was costing corporate America, and this is pre-pandemic, $360 billion a year in losses. And so we created and trademarked Joy Economics, creating better ways to live, work, and play. And we set a corporate imperative and made it our mission to really, as I affectionately say, and I'm being facetious, blow up corporate America in the way we think about productivity, the way we drive people toward bottom line success, and figure out ways to do it in a way that's more supportive of who people are and their humanity, and recognizing that humanity is what drives businesses. So how can we honor that and do it in a way holistically that supports versus tear down? And so, yeah, we've done all the stats, the homework. About just in a dollar of investment in employee health and wellness yields about $1.50 back to the bottom line on average.
Wow. And it's so true in what you said of, you can't really tell from, somebody could look okay on the outside and you don't know what's going on with them in the inside, and they could keep getting things thrown at them. So that's a good point. And to add on to that, so you're really trying to erase the stigma of mental illness in the workplace. How do you help team leaders get into that same mindset and promote overall employee wellness?
I think it's such a honest and real question, Ashley, and I can't speak for others, but for me, it has meant leaning into my diagnosis and being honest with myself and honest with my team and with my employees about my personal struggles and what I need to be the healthiest leader. And I think until we really understand systemically what stigma is, we can't really address it. So like mental health is trending right now, and it's trending in corporate America, and we're saying things like erase the stigma, but until we really understand how that stigma shows up, then we are not having the real conversation. And so I think it takes courageous leaders, people who are willing to take their mask off and out themselves, for lack of a better word, and say, this is what I struggle with. This is how it affects me at work. And here's what I need from my organization to be able to perform at my best. And we need willing leaders who will receive it with empathy and figure out solutions. So the whole tenets of Joy Economics is really about, putting people in their sweet spot. So Ashley, like if I know that certain types of work activities make you happy and joyful, I'm going to try to place you in a role in my organization where you organically and naturally shine, versus stressing you and putting you in a place where the company may need you, but you may not be as gifted and talented. That immediately is going to cause tension and stress in your life, and my business is going to suffer. So, but I think it all begins with people having, and I use the word courage because it's not easy to be a leader and also show and share vulnerability. And a lot more people are scared about the risk and what they will risk if they share who they are at work what damage will be done to their personal brand and their career. And so it keeps people hiding in plain sight. And we think we're having a conversation that we're never really having.
So let's pivot a little bit. Small businesses have no doubt been hit hard due to COVID. What are some communication strategies you think they should be using during this time?
So that's a great question. I laugh because the answer is almost the same answer. My first leading answer is almost the same answer. So I believe you have to lean in pretty much in most ways. When there's difficulty, something that's happening, you cannot effectively address something if you are not willing to acknowledge the proverbial elephant in the room. As painful as it may be to take that hard look in the mirror and say, this is happening, until you can say that comfortably and accept it, you can't pivot. And so in crisis communication, if there was a communication crisis, so I'll take the Tylenol classic textbook marketing example of when Tylenol had the big scare back in the like 80s or 90s where, the bottles got tampered with. Until they were able to acknowledge, yep, this happened, then they can't address what they're going to do about it. And so in the beginning of the pandemic, so many companies were going dark. They were going to just wait it out. And, time has shown us that, everything is moving forward, whether we are or not. So my first step is always to tell people to just lean in and accept it. And once you can, then you can figure out ways to get back in control. And then from there, I think it's really working hard to establish a positive brand voice. We've been in a year of saturated negative messaging. And so anyone who can show up with positivity and as part of their brand and their brand voice automatically will kind of cut through the clutter and get noticed, because people are craving humanity right now, and connection and positive energy is so needed. And then from there, the final step I would say is focus on selling solutions, not services. So, in the retail business, obviously, we've had, a lot of impact, but when the retailers that have pivoted and done it well are the ones who figured out, how do I use my retail business to serve a need that is in the current marketplace, which is the COVID marketplace. And those who have pivoted and they're selling masks and solutions and things that really address the needs at hand versus holding on again to what they may have been doing pre-pandemic.
And I'm sure you have a ton of tips, but I thought we could end with, what is your number one tip for work-life balance, specifically for women?
Boundaries. It's the biggest work I've had to do personally for myself. I think as women, we are the worst when it comes to boundaries. We are so dutifully bound and in bondage by what other people think of us. We will run ourselves ragged trying to please people, trying to make everybody happy. And so what I've comfortably learned is, like, we all mostly have a spirit of giving and nurturing, but you cannot nurture if your cup is empty. And so really the best parts of you come from your overflow. And when you're able to overflow, then that overflow is what feeds and fuels and nurtures and does all this great work that you're seeking to do, right? But you have to be full in order to overflow. So being comfortable asking for what you need. Hey, let me give myself a break. I don't have to respond to all the emails. If I respond to all the emails, then a whole bunch more emails are just going to flood in. Giving yourself intentional time to focus on self-care, knowing when to say no, making your yeses strong yeses, and not falling prey to approval addiction and trying to keep everybody happy. So boundaries, boundaries, boundaries.
I love that. Well, Shani, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Women in Retail Talks and sharing on such an important topic.
Thank you so much for having me. If you would allow me, I would love for anyone interested in learning more about Joy Economics to check out our podcast at Joy Economics, Creating Better Ways to Live, Work, and Play. We're talking all things boundaries and pivoting and work-life balance all the time. And then we are easily found on Facebook and LinkedIn at Communicate USA.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening. For more information on this podcast, please check out our podcast channel page at womeninretail.com for show notes. Women in Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel page as well. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a few moments to rate and review this podcast. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Women in Retail Talks.